Part 30 of sharing my story on here because it's so much easier than writing another book. And it is early 2010 and I am going back to work after my mother passes away. She was not just my mom, my best friend, and my business partner, and we shared an office. And then she was in charge of keeping track of like all of the scheduling and like the order of operations and all the shit that's important to run a business. Like, I was out her voice and the knowledge of the business, but she maintained the entire thing. So I go back to our office and I sit at her big computer and I cannot take it. I can't. And I'm like, what on earth would my mom do right now? And first thing that popped into my mind is she would go to Dairy Queen. Whenever there was a problem, we're going and getting a Buster bar because that solves everything. I loved her for that. So I'm sitting in her car because I like inherited it. I just kept driving it. And I'm sitting in her car at Dairy Queen eating a Buster bar, and I had remembered this video, and I'll clip it in here. It's like my favorite video of all time, and it's her and I on September 11th, 2009, so just a few months before she died. And we had had a really rough day at work because anytime you're doing sales on like what's deemed an anniversary or a holiday or something like that, like it's just a rough day. And it was not good. And we had so much fun at the park. It's funny. Just watch.
Okay.
But I was sitting there and I was like, I need to buy an iPhone because she loved to document everything. I had an old camcorder. I documented everything. In fact, filming myself was a huge part of my healing process and understanding my triggers and my trauma. I would film myself when the kids were really little and I was a stay-at-home mom. I would film myself during the worst parts of my day, you know, when I'm cooking dinner and all the kids are crazy and everybody's hungry and tired. I put a camcorder on me and would film myself being triggered. And that's how I learned how to manage my triggers and go deeper. So I was really used to filming myself, and that's what she always wanted to do, was just film us doing deep stuff, serious stuff, funny shit, like whatever. So I went and bought an iPhone 3G. It's like ancient now, but it was so freaking cool. And I felt like I had the power at my fingertips. And a few days later, I ended up going back to work, and I was like, that's, you just got to do what you got to do. Like, that's how the world is. Like, our trauma, as real as it is, it doesn't really matter. As awful as that sounds, it's like when shitty things happen, we have to learn how to just pull ourselves up and say, okay, what lessons did we learn? How are we going to flow through this differently? And so I was already very familiar with healing and trauma and grief and the process. And I was like, I'm just going to do this for mom, for all the people that I've lost along the way. And I just booked out my schedule like crazy. I did over 100 speaking engagements in like 90 days. I was doing multiple events a day, and I loved it because here's a few things that I've learned. Just because you're a survivor of something doesn't mean you're an expert. Expert status is a whole lot of knowledge beyond your own lived experience. And so I had to, like, I knew that I didn't know what I was doing, and I needed to collect data and ask a bunch of questions and talk to people, but I could share my story because that is what I'm an expert in, is sharing my story and who I am and the decisions I've made and the lessons I've learned, and like that I'm really good at. And along the way, you do pick up more knowledge, but the older you get, you realize the less you know, but you actually know a lot more because you've experienced a lot more, but you also realize how expansive knowledge and consciousness is. And so it's complex and nuanced, just like everything else on the planet. So I am sharing my story. I keep looking at my notes because I got to keep track of this shit. It's been a lot. I go back to work and I'm just booked out. Speaking engagements, I'm doing the thing and I'm meeting people. Being a survivor gives you an open door into rooms that you wouldn't normally have access to. And so I was being contacted by survivors, but also the board of these newly forming nonprofits and good intentioned people who are wanting to create awareness, but then also have an impact. Like how do we help when we're looking at something as complex as trafficking? Like how do we help, and how do we serve, and how do we make a difference? What does this really look like? But just the complexity of having a family where we have 4 kids and we had 3 adults in the household. And so we had 2 people running the business at all times and then 1 person at home. And at this point, Reed was basically a stay-at-home father, and Mom and I were out in the field working because we had made the shift from You First to the couponing business. And that meant Reed was at home, but now without Mom, I'm doing 2 jobs instead of just 1. And he is fully at home because I am out working. And it was like mid to late March that we had done the adult thing. And I woke up and I knew I was pregnant. And I was so fucking angry. I was so mad because I did not want to be pregnant. Like, my mom had just died. And I'm dealing with this whole business by myself. And not only do I have the trafficking stuff, I have the couponing business. We already have 4 kids. Like, I don't need any more kids. And yet I was still very staunchly pro-life. Even though I wasn't in activism, I was just like, it's just meant to be. And that pregnancy, all of 2010, I was so freaking depressed, and yet just stuffing it into work and learning, like learning new things. Like, I'm collecting data at this point because I just want to know what in the hell causes trafficking. Like, why do people do this? Why do people behave the way they do? And how do we help survivors like me? How did I help me? How did I get here or there? And like, what are we going to do about this? Because it's a lot. So being pregnant, I'm like, I've done this 5 times. I know how to do it, but deep inside of me, I'm just really miserable with it. And it was not easy. I did hire a midwifery team because I knew I was not connected to my body enough. Like, I was so busy and doing so many things that even though I had had the unassisted childbirth just prior, my 4th, I was like, I need a team. I need someone looking out for me because I'm not going to be looking out for me as well as I should be. And I know that about myself. So I hired a whole team and we did the normal midwifery thing. Like, I went to all of my appointments and checkups and I managed the whole thing because I know what I'm going to do and not going to do and how things are going to go. But I'm really glad that I had a team there for me because I needed it, because I was going all over the country. I'm flying all over the country and I'm speaking at churches and schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges, universities. Like, I'm speaking everywhere and I'm having so much fun and really just like meeting people and in my groove, and it's amazing. And I'm teaching. I had no idea what would happen. Like, I had taught classes, but when you like put me in front of an audience that is deeply engaged, I just come alive. And it's like we go on this emotional journey of the ups and downs, always remembering what my mom said about we don't want them to when I'm done, because hope matters, like joy matters, our life matters. And so it was deeply emotional and so fun. And I was really just learning to use my voice and expression, and it was amazing. But Reed kind of has an attitude. And I'm like, why is it that he always told me that being a stay-at-home mom was the most honorable job? Why is it that, like, moms are the strongest people on the planet and they do all the hard work and they're keeping track of the household? And it occurred to me under this Christian context that if the man is the head of the household, why is he not in the household? And so I was like, this makes the most godly sense to me that if you're going to be in charge of the household, you freaking run the household. I'm going to go to work and live my purpose and do my thing because that only makes sense. And so I had this big blowout argument with him